Discover 7 spine-chilling tales of haunted nights that reveal sinister secrets to cursed sleep. The suburban night wrapped Maplewood in a deceptive calm, where every porch light stood like a sentinel against the dark. But tonight, the shadows held their breath, and an eerie chill stung Laura as she parked her car in front of her home. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Mr. Thompson sat on his porch, his overbearing smile eerily reflected in the dim light. The way he watched her made her skin crawl, triggering a primal response deep within a warning. She shook it off, forcing herself to dismiss the gnawing unease as weariness from her shift at the diner. Yet inside her house, Jake and Mia were wide awake, their whispers slicing through the silence like a knife. "Mommy, he's watching us," Jake murmured, his small hands trembling as he clutched a toy. "The watcher," Mia sobbed, her big eyes glistening with tears. Laura's heart raced. She pushed their fears away, wanting to comfort them. Kids had wild imaginations fueled by too many late-night cartoons, right? But they weren't just scared, they were terrified of something lurking beyond their bedroom door. As she tucked them back into their small beds, a familiar creaking echoed through the house, like a warning bell. The wind sang low through the cracks, and shadows danced on the walls. "I promise you, there is nothing to be afraid of," she coaxed, her own certainty wavering. The children's fears wrestled with her exhaustion, merging into a sense of impending dread she couldn't shake. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The next morning, she called the police, hoping for reassurance. "Kids say scary things all the time," the officer smirked, waving her concerns away. "It's just a phase." But inside, panic tightened around her like a vice. She needed to dig deeper, uncovering pieces of Mr. Thompson's past that chilled her to the bone. Pets had gone missing in the neighborhood, vanished without a trace. And the whispers, it was always the hushed rumors surrounding his home. That night, fueled by fear, Laura sat awake, staring blankly at the walls, imagining horrors. The children slept soundly, too soundly. The relentless ticking of the clock mocked her anxiety. Then, in the stillness, a shuddering sound pulled her from her thoughts. Her heart thundered as she peeked into their room. Empty. Their beds lay undisturbed, but the air felt heavy with something unspeakable. Beside their pillows lay a crumpled drawing, a figure cloaked in shadow with hollow eyes looming over their sleeping forms. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She had to confront Mr. Thompson. Every instinct urged her to flee, but she knew she had to protect her children. The shadows seemed to cling to her as she stepped outside, empty streets yawning before her as she approached his home. The once charming neighborhood now loomed ominously. She could feel the chill in the air wrapping around her like a shroud. As she turned the final corner, her breath caught. Mr. Thompson stood in the darkness, his smile now stretching too wide, stretching like the boundary between sanity and madness. "Looking for something, Laura?" he crooned, his voice lilting as if it danced on the edge of oblivion. In that moment, she felt the cold grip of fate wrap tightly around her. Would she uncover the truth before it consumed them all? Or would Maplewood's sinister secrets prove too powerful, dragging her family into an abyss from which there might be no return? The night pressed in around her, every heartbeat echoing the growing dread. The night was alive with an unsettling stillness, a quiet that felt like a prelude to something unspeakable. Laura's breath hung in the air, visible and trembling as she faced Mr. Thompson. His grin carved an unnatural shape across his face, one that seemed to consume the light and swallow her resolve whole. What do you want?" she stammered, her voice echoing back at her, hollow against the pavement. Each word felt like it was pulled from a place of fear, of desperation. Mr. Thompson took a step closer, the shadows around him growing thicker. "Your children," he said, his voice a whisper that slithered through the air, cold and menacing. "They have such wonderful imaginations. It's delightful." A shiver raced down Laura's spine. "Stay away from them," she shouted, her protective instinct roaring to life. The darkness seemed to laugh as it closed around her, amplifying her fear. Each heartbeat felt like a rolling drum announcing her impending doom. "Are you sure you're ready to threaten me?" he replied, an unsettling calmness in his tone. "You don't know, do you, Laura? The stories about me, they don't tell the half of it." The wind picked up, howling through the trees as if the world around them wanted to warn her. Every fiber in her being screamed to run, but she stood frozen, learning from the stares of her children just how insidious this man was. "What do you mean?" she whispered, daring to edge closer, a morbid curiosity clawing its way into her mind despite the danger. He leaned forward, the smile dropping from his face, replaced by a cold expression that pierced through the night. "Let us just say there's a reason the pets disappear, and it's not just me. They come and go, just like the others." Before Laura could respond, a flicker caught her eye, an unmistakable shadow darted past her. Panic twisted her stomach as she turned toward it, only to see Jake and Mia standing just outside their bedroom door, wide-eyed and terrified. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, their voices trembling with fear, breaking the sinister spell. She rushed to them, hugging them tightly while shooting a frantic look at Mr. Thompson. He stood there, unfazed, almost amused. "You should keep them close, dear. They have an appointment, you know," he said, his voice soft, as if he were discussing the weather. "Get away from us!" Laura screamed, feeling as though she could snap, her heart racing faster than ever. Looking in the children's eyes, she saw not only fear but something else, something dark and ancient, just below the surface. "Jake, Mia, we need to go inside. Now!" As she turned to usher them back inside, the door creaked open and the shadows seemed to roll in, thick as fog. She felt a twist of dread in her gut. What could be lurking in the dark corners of her house, feeding on their fears? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the basement, followed by an insidious whisper that seemed to crawl under her skin. "Don't!" it hissed, drawing out the single word as if it were a warning laced with malice. "What was that?" Mia whimpered, clinging to Laura's leg. But before she could answer, the ground trembled slightly underfoot, a deep, vibrating pulse emanating from below. Mr. Thompson's smile reappeared, twisted and malevolent. "It's almost time. The veil grows thin, Laura. You should decide quickly." Terror washed over her. She pulled her children back, the darkness spilling into their home like an invasion, taunting and coiling around her very being. What lay waiting in that basement? And what dark legacy was intertwined with Mr. Thompson? Her heart raced as she faced the very thing she feared most, the unknown. She couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would change everything, and that somewhere, behind the walls, lurked something far worse. Would they remain trapped in the clutches of a sinister fate, or would they unlock the secrets hidden within their own home? Laura knew one thing: this wasn't over. The night was far from finished, and she had to dig even deeper. As she looked back into Mr. Thompson's eyes, she understood that dark forces operated beyond her comprehension. What awaited her just below the surface? The children clung to Laura as she opened the front door wider, a wave of dread crashing over her. The air inside the house wasn't just still, it was heavy, thick with an unshakable tension. Each creak of the wooden floorboards beneath her feet felt like a countdown, reminding her that time was slipping away. "Mommy, what was that noise?" Jake asked, his little voice barely a whisper, his pale face heightened by fear. Mia tightened her grip, her wide eyes darting between her brother and the ominous figure of Mr. Thompson, whose presence seemed to linger even beyond the threshold of the house. "We'll find out," Laura said, her voice steadier than she felt. She steered them inside, squeezing the door shut against the encroaching darkness. The basement door stood at the far end of the hall, partially ajar, as if inviting them to descend into its depths. The whisper swirled in her mind, an insistent echo, "Don't." "What do we do, Mommy?" Mia asked, trembling. "Stay close," Laura commanded, her own heart pounding in her chest. They stepped further inside, the shadows stretching and creeping, fueled by her mounting anxiety. The house felt unfamiliar, almost hostile. The basement door creaked as if something or someone was waiting just beyond it. The crash that resonated moments ago still echoed in her ears. Was it the wind, or something more sinister? Each thought crammed into her mind, battling for domination. She wanted to scream, to run, but instead, she had to be a warrior for her children. "Look!" Jake cried suddenly. He pointed at a flicker of movement near the stairs that led down to the basement. An elongated shadow danced and twisted, vanishing just as quickly as it had appeared. Jake, don't. We need to stay together, she warned, even as her fingers trembled. Her instinct told her to flee, to barricade the door and never look back. But the basement hummed with dark energy, a siren call that clawed at her curiosity. As they crept closer to the open door, the whisper returned, clearer now, help me. Laura's breath caught in her throat. The voice tugged at something buried within her. The memory of her childhood friends who had gone missing slipped into her mind like a cold wave of sinister chill. She had heard the rumors of children wandering too close to the Thompson property, drawn in by that same darkness. Mom? Mia's small voice cut through her thoughts, laced with dread. I don't like this, I know, Laura said, her eyes darting between the children and the basement door. But we need to see. She took a deep breath, fighting against the rising tide of fear, pushing herself forward. She could smell the musty air wafting up from the stairs, an ancient scent that promised things best forgotten. Perhaps it was a mistake, but she stepped closer, her hand on the basement railing. And just as she glanced back at her children to reassure them, a loud crash came from the basement, followed by a cacophony of whispers pleading, desperate. Mommy, let us go. Please. Jake's voice pierced through the spine-chilling atmosphere. Caught between dread and the need to protect, Laura felt her resolve tremble. She jerked back, ready to retreat, but it was then the house rumbled, a shuddering tremor that stopped her in her tracks. Whatever was down there, it wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It was real, and it was hungry. The panic swelled inside of her. Her knees felt weak, and the shadows twisted in anticipation, ready to snatch them away. We have to go, now. She turned, yanking her children with her. But as they raced toward the door, the basement door slammed shut with a resounding bang. The sound echoed like a final verdict. No! Laura screamed, pounding against the wood. The darkness had become a living thing, wrapping around them, suffocating her screams with its grip. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the other side, slow and deliberate. Laura's heart lurched. Let us out! Jake cried, his small fists beating against the door. A low chuckle resonated within the space behind the closed door, sending shivers down her spine. It's too late to run, Laura. We can finally play. Terror pierced her heart. The shadows coiled closer, whispering her name, drawing her toward the abyss that waited below. What awaited them in the basement? And what would Mr. Thompson and the darkness claim next? The darkness seemed to pulse around them, a living entity that thrummed with malevolent energy. Laura felt the panic claw at her throat, constricting her breath. She cast a desperate glance at the door, but it refused to budge, mocking her attempts to escape. Her hands ached from pounding against the warped wood. Mommy! Mia's voice, shaky and small, pierced through the suffocating silence. The children pressed closer, their fear becoming an echo of her own. It was overwhelming. The oppressive weight of their trepidation filled the air like a storm ready to break. She had to think quickly. Stay behind me! Laura commanded, steeling her resolve as she felt the icy fingers of doubt wrapping around her. She had to protect them, she had to find a way out. Mia, Jake, we need to make noise. Yell. Shout. The idea startled her own thoughts but was the only weapon left. Each child lifted their voice, a cacophony of panicked cries that bounced off the walls, intensifying the chaos, but the shadows answered back, a cacophony of whispers entwined with their screams, promising dreadful secrets and things best left unsaid. Help me play with us. The words slithered through the air, wrapping around Laura's mind like tendrils of smoke. Stop it! She screamed, staring at the door in fervent anger. Just let us out. Her heart raced. Was it daydream, nightmare, or something worse? The response was laughter, dark and twisted, filling the space like a noxious gas. It sent chills skittering down her spine, clawing at her resolve. It felt like the house was alive and watching. Laura turned back to her children. We need to find a way to break this door down. Can you do me a favor? Anything. They shouted in unison, their fear still sparking bravery. On 3, we push together. Hold on to the railing. Okay. Both children cried, shaking slightly but standing firm. 1, 2, 3. They shoved against the door with all their might. Laura could feel the wood under her palms vibrating. For an instant, hope flickered. But then nothing. The door remained steadfast, a barrier fueled by the very darkness they were trying to escape. The whispers came back, sharper now, almost angry. "Let us out!" Jake shouted, still attempting to pound against the door. With a shuddering breath, Laura leaned in closer, pressing her ear to the cold wood. She thought she heard something different amidst the din. A low, thrumming beat. Heartbeat. "Shoo, listen!" she whispered urgently. The children fell silent, their wide eyes glued to her as they strained to hear, and she heard it drumming steadily, like footsteps in the distance. Closer and closer it came. A flash of light flickered under the door, reflecting off a pair of shoes old, stained. "Mommy? What's happening?" Mia whispered against her side, her small face pale with fright. "I don't know," Laura admitted, feeling sweat trickling down her back. Just as she started to encourage her children again, the ground shook under them like a violent tremor. It was as if the house itself was alive, groaning in discomfort. Suddenly, the basement door jolted open, wrenching toward them with an uncanny force, revealing only a gorge of impenetrable darkness. No light. No comfort. Just the abyss that beckoned, alive with terrifying whispers. "Come play." It echoed from the void before the door slashed shut again, plunging them into silence. The air hung heavy once more, pregnant with fear. Laura turned slowly to her children, barely able to retain her panic. They stared up at her, eyes brimming with terror. It was primal and raw, a mirror reflecting her own fear. "We have to go back to the front door now," Laura said, her voice now a determined whisper. But as they turned, the hallway twisted, stretching like a long black tunnel. The only way out seemed deeper into the house, where the whispers promised secrets she dared not uncover. What would they find if they ventured further? And could they escape the darkness that now felt so alive? "Go! Quick!" Laura urged, the words spilling from her lips in a frantic rush. She shoved Jake and Mia ahead of her, forcing herself to act despite the tightening knots of fear in her gut. She could still feel the house thrum with energy, the pulse growing stronger as they stumbled deeper into its shadowy bowels. They moved single file, stepping carefully over splintered floorboards that groaned in protest beneath their weight, creating an unsettling symphony that blended dread with their racing hearts. The whispers began again, more distinct this time, curling around them. "Stay with us forever." It sent goosebumps racing across Laura's skin. "Don't listen," she hissed, squeezing her eyes shut for a moment. She wanted to shut out the world, block out the horrors creeping just beyond her vision. But reopening her eyes only solidified the reality they faced. Mia stumbled, gasping, "Mommy! The walls, they're moving." Laura grabbed Mia's hand tightly, glancing at the walls as flickers of shadow darted just out of sight. They seemed to throb, contracting and expanding, swirling with an undercurrent of the sinister. "It's just your imagination," she whispered, forcing conviction into her voice as they continued onward, but although she spoke for Mia, she wasn't so sure herself. Each step forward felt like a step into a waking nightmare. Shadows flickered at the edges, dancing just beyond their reach. Visions of twisted faces pressed against the walls haunted her, hungry for their panic. Then came a soft thud. "No," a whisper. "Come find us, join the fun." The children shuddered, their eyes wide, glancing back, looking to Laura for guidance. "Stay together," Laura urged, her voice shaking. She gripped the banister, using it for balance as she led her little ones onward. They passed doorways that yawned open, revealing glimpses of empty rooms where the wallpaper peeled like dead skin. It was as if the house itself exhaled despair. Suddenly, a crash echoed from a room to their right. Mia screamed, jerking away from Laura, her little body vibrating with terror. Laura felt her own heart leap into her throat. "Get back here! Mommy, please!" Mia whimpered, eyes wide as she took a step back. It was too late to dwell on fear or hesitations. "We don't have time. It's now or never," Laura shouted, pulling Mia back into her grip. Flashes of their last moments together, of laughing in the sun, fueled her determination. They had to keep moving. So, they pressed on, leaving the sinister sounds and shadows behind for now. But the promise of escape felt fragile, as if the house itself might reach out and grasp them at any moment. And then came silence, the kind that roared in their ears, deafening and oppressive. Laura's heart thudded heavily as they reached a cavernous room at the end of the hall, the walls adorned with dusty portraits whose eyes seemed to follow them, alive with malice. Laura stepped forward, scanning the room frantically. "Look for a way out," she urged. The children nodded, eyes darting around. But dread gripped her throat again, squeezing tighter. A low, guttural laugh echoed through the room, vibrating through the walls, chilling Laura to her core. "You shouldn't have come here." And suddenly, the portraits shifted, their painted lips curling into grotesque smiles, their eyes glinting as if stars had fallen into them. The floor trembled, a wave of darkness pooling beneath their feet, threatening to swallow them whole. "Mommy!" Jake cried, clutching tightly to Laura's leg. At that moment, she realized the truth: they weren't just trying to escape. They were being hunted. The laughter swelled around them, rising in volume as the shadows coalesced, forming vague shapes of twisted figures. "Come, play with us!" Desperation clawed at her as she turned to the nearest wall, crashing her fists against the wooden surface. "Let us out! Let us out!" The floor split beneath them with a violent crack, splintering wide open. Laura lunged, grabbing both children as they teetered dangerously close to the yawning abyss. They would not fall, she would not let that happen. But how long until the darkness snatched them from her grasp? She had to face it. Only one way led to freedom. The ancient wooden door behind them creaked in anticipation, almost beckoning them back. Go back? Her heart pounded, but the choice quickly dissolved into chaos as the shadows pressed closer. Laura steeled herself. "We're going back. We need to find the light." But the way was unclear. Uncertainty loomed, blending with the darkness they'd come to dread. What lay on the other side? Was there truly an escape, or just deeper horror waiting for them? A footstep echoed behind them, heavy and deliberate. It was moving closer. "Run!" she screamed, but would they be fast enough? The shadows surged forward, curling around their legs like tendrils of smoke, seeking any point of weakness. Laura grasped Mia's small hand, feeling her pulse thunder with fear, while Jake's grip tightened around her waist. The world narrowed to the dark maw behind them, a hungry opening that threatened to swallow them whole. "Don't look back!" she yelled, forcing her voice to stay steady, even as panic twisted her insides. They darted through the ancient door, the hinges creaking in agonizing protest as if the house itself resented their flight. The hallway beyond was dimmer, lit only by sputtering candlelight that cast eerie shadows along the walls. Dust motes hung suspended in the air, illuminated in brief bursts of flickering orange. Every step echoed left, right, left, drumming in urgent rhythm as they ran up the narrow corridor. "Do you hear that?" Jake whispered, glancing back at the door. His voice quivered. "No!" Laura snapped, forcing herself to quell the rising fear in her throat. They had to keep going. Keep moving. The oppressive silence was suffocating, cracked only by the sound of their hurried breath. Then, drifting through the air, came that same soft voice, seductive and chilling. "Come, play with us, you're almost home." Laura felt a chill crawl up her spine. "We're not going home." The words spilled out in a resolute hiss. She could almost see the creeping shadows gathering, eager to twist the reality of her statements. Suddenly, a rattling crash echoed behind them, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy, purposeful, and gaining speed. Her heart raced in rhythm with the footsteps, panic pulling at her limbs. "Faster!" Mia's breath hitched, her tiny fingers slipping slightly in Laura's grip. "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart. Just stay close." They turned a sharp corner, and another door loomed ahead, its ominous presence shrouded in shadow. Laura hesitated only a moment. Would it lead to the outside or deeper into the nightmare? She didn't know. "We have to take the chance." She lunged for the door handle, shoving it open with all her strength. The room beyond was vast, a stark contrast to the cramped corridors. It was filled with large, oddly shaped furniture draped in tattered cloth, like a funeral parlor for forgotten memories. Laura pulled the children in, shutting the door behind them with a thud that resounded through the eerie stillness. Look for a window, she urged, scanning the room. But every corner felt like it closed in around them, as if the furniture themselves bore witness to their plight. Shadows danced among the furniture, flickering silhouettes that seemed to watch with malevolent glee. Then came the whispers again, this time more forceful, rippling like a wave of malice. "Stay with us forever, join us," Jake whimpered, moving closer to Laura, his face pale. "Mommy, it's not just the house, they're in here with us." "What do you mean?" Laura's pulse thundered. "Faces in the shadows," he gasped, pointing. "Look." She turned, heart clenching. There, peering from behind the heavy curtains, were eyes dark, hollow, encircled in pale flesh, watching them with an insatiable hunger. "Run!" Laura shouted, grabbing her children and darting toward the opposite side of the room. Their feet pounded against the wooden floor, the noise drowned out by a cacophony of sinister laughter that filled the air. The furniture began to writhe, shifting as if alive, blocking their path. "No! Get back!" Laura screamed, pushing through the oppressive atmosphere, her breath labored. They were almost at another door when laughter burst forth, booming and echoing, twisting in the air like an unseen force. The shadows grew bolder, advancing, wrapping around them. "Where do we go?" Mia cried, her eyes wet with tears of terror, the weight of hopelessness settling heavily upon her small shoulders. But the shadows were closing in faster, and any hope they had seemed to flicker out like a dying flame. Laura grabbed the nearest piece of furniture, the leg of an old table, and swung it toward the advancing darkness. "Get away from us!" Would they break through to safety, or was this place truly a trap, one no one could escape? Just then, a light flickered in the corner, a soft glow that beckoned them. Was it real? Or just another trick of the house? "Over there!" Laura pointed, desperation igniting new energy in her limbs. But as they moved toward the light, a heavy thud came from behind them, a rush of wind that slammed the door shut with a bone-rattling crack. The room spun around them, shadows swirling as the house roared with fury. Laura felt a surge of primal fear. Would they reach the light before the darkness consumed them? As they lunged for the glow, a scream echoed through the corridors, a piercing, unearthly sound that pierced Laura's heart. It belonged to someone. But who? And was it too late for her and her children? The light pulsed, drawing them closer, but the shadows shrieked, their voices laced with a twisted urgency. "You can't escape, you're ours forever, faster!" Laura urged, her heart thundering like a drum. She knew they were almost there, but the dread was palpable, a suffocating fog that made each step feel heavier. Jake pulled at her shirt, his eyes wide and terrified. "Mommy, I can't do it. I can't." "Jake, you have to." She fought to keep her voice calm, though her insides churned with fear. "We have to reach the light. It's our only chance." Mia began to lag, fatigue weighing her small body down. "I'm tired, Mommy." "No, sweetheart. Just a little further." They surged toward the flickering glow, but as they approached, the room began to shudder. The shadows pulsed violently, twisting and morphing into nightmarish forms. There were faces now, twisted and sorrowful, their mouths silently screaming, desperate for release. "Let go of us!" Laura yelled, swinging the table leg again, this time at an approaching shadow. It struck true, and for a split second, the darkness recoiled. But it was a fleeting victory, and the laughter erupted once more, a chorus of madness that rattled her bones. With a final giant thrust, they hurled themselves toward the light. The glow brightened, almost blinding, until they found themselves enveloped in it. But as Laura squinted, she realized they stood not in safety but on the edge of a vast, unsettling expanse. The room dissolved around them, replaced by an endless field of fog. Shapes whirled in the mist, darting just beyond the reach of the light, leaving soft whispers that curled in the air like smoke. "Stay, stay, we only want to play now." Laura screamed, the desperation clawing at her throat. "We want to go home." She turned to the kids, terror etched in their features. "We need to stick together. We can't let them take us." Mia squeezed her eyes shut. "Mommy, I want to see the sun again." Laura's stomach twisted at her daughter's words. The shadows were gathering, creeping closer, their inky fingers brushing against her skin like ice. "Then we must run again. We must find another way." But the insidious laughter surrounded them, rising in volume as they began to spin slowly in place. The fog thickened, closing in like a blanket suffocating any hope. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the murk, tall and shrouded, eyes glinting in the shadows. Its presence was suffocating, exuding a sense of authority that made Laura's blood run cold. "Welcome home," it rasped, every word dripping with malice. "What do you want from us?" Laura demanded, trying to find courage in the face of pure terror. "We want to play a game," it hissed, a sadistic grin spreading across its face, revealing teeth twisted and broken. "One that will change your fate forever." "No games!" Laura shouted, blood pounding in her ears. "Just let us go. We didn't choose this place." A laugh rippled through the mist, chilling and familiar, mingling with the shadows circling the children. "Oh, but you're already a part of our story, dear Laura. You can't escape what you've participated in." Hand in hand, they stood at the edge of the nightmare, clutching each other tightly, heartbeats thundering in unison. The darkness churned around them, and the whispers rose to a fever pitch, but then, from somewhere deep in the fog came a sudden silence. A door appeared. An ancient wooden door, its frame beckoning with an ethereal glow from beyond. Could this be their salvation, or another trap? Laura exchanged glances with her children. Fear flashed in their eyes, but so did a flicker of hope. "To the door!" she shouted, bolting forward, feeling the shadows lunge behind them. But as they reached the door, it rattled violently, as if it had a mind of its own. Would they burst through to safety, or would it lead them deeper into the clutches of the malevolent presence that sought to own their souls? The door creaked open, revealing yet another world of chaos. What awaited them on the other side? The moment the door swung wide, a horrific cacophony assaulted their senses. The swirling chaos spilled into their ears the sound of shattering glass, distant screams, and the mournful wail of the wind. Laura hesitated at the threshold, clutching Jake and Mia closer. "What is that?" she whispered, dread coiling tighter around her heart. "Mommy, I don't want to go in," Jake whined, his small voice trembling. "Me neither," Mia echoed, her grip tightening on Laura's hand. But Laura could feel the shadows pressing in around them, and she knew they had to make a choice. "Please, just a little further," Laura urged, stepping into the disarray. They crossed into the unknown. The air thickened, heavy and damp, suffocating in its intensity. The door slammed shut behind them with a finality that reverberated through the dark. They stood in a room illuminated by flickering neon lights, but the vibrant hues felt wrong, like a sick parody of cheerfulness. Each light bulb buzzed ominously, almost taunting them. "Where are we?" Jake asked, wide-eyed, glancing around the disarray of objects that littered the ground. Broken toys, clothes, and photographs. Each item told a silent story, a testament of lives lost or shattered. Laura knelt down to examine a tattered photograph. It depicted a family, smiling joyously. She felt a chill creep over her, as if the eyes of the subjects bore witness to their current plight. She shoved the photo away, unwilling to linger on the sorrowful past it hinted at. "Mommy, look!" Mia pointed, her small voice cracking. Before them stretched a long dark hallway, shadows weaving and writhing at its edges, beckoning them to venture deeper. "No," Laura whispered. "We have to find a way out." But the shadows chortled softly, wrapping around her, whispering promises of lost memories, feigned warmth. "Stay with us, dear Laura. You'll remember, you'll play forever." With a surge of determination, Laura grasped her children's hands. "Let us move." They dashed down the corridor, unsteady footsteps echoing off the peeling walls. The laughter behind them grew louder, a grotesque symphony urging them to turn back. They passed door after door, each one cracked open just enough to allow faint shadows to spill out, teasing at glimpses of frayed dreams and memories, shadows of the past that made her stomach churn. "Keep going, don't look back," she urged, her voice strained but filled with fierce willpower. They needed to focus on moving ahead. Suddenly, the corridor widened into a large chamber. It was empty except for a single chair in the center, facing a warped mirror that seemed to pulse. The reflection didn't show a normal image but twisted glimpses of who they were and who they could become. Every fear, every doubt echoed back at them in distorted shapes and cringing forms. "Mia, look away!" Laura shouted, pulling her daughter back just as Mia began to inch forward. The shadows crept along the edges of the room, whispering dark delights. Don't listen to them. But the whispers fluttered around them, grabbing at their senses, weaving promises that curled like smoke. You want to be happy again, don't you? They sang, all around. We can make you forget fighting against their lure, she pushed forward, but the constraints of the shadows tightened around her. The chair beckoned, a sinister invitation, and behind it loomed the mirror, reflecting a gruesome reality. Jake began to cry, the weight of dread overwhelming him as he pleaded, "Mommy, I don't want to end up like them." Laura's heart dropped. "We won't. We're getting out." Suddenly, the mirror cracked, sending shards flying in all directions. The sound echoed, piercing through her resolve like ice. Each piece reflected an alternate fate, showing horrible endings she couldn't bear to witness. Urging her children to stay close, they turned and sprinted back down the hallway, the whispers growing angry and desperate, a cacophony of voices heated with rage. "You can't escape," they fled down the corridor, fear hot on their heels. But as the shadows grew less forgiving, enthusiastic laughter echoed from behind them, promising that this game had barely begun. What other horrors lurked in the depths of this forsaken place? Would they ever truly escape, or would they become lost within its twisted tales forever? The darkness pressed in on them like thick fog, wrapping around Laura and her children as they sprinted down the now narrowing corridor. Each stride felt like a heavy weight on their chests, an invisible force pushing them back into the depths they had tried to flee. The shadows writhed with hunger, eager to reclaim their lost souls. "Mommy, I can't run," Jake gasped, his little legs faltering. Panic surged through Laura, a fire igniting in her throat. "Just a bit more, Jake. I promise we'll find a way out," she yelled, her voice strained but determined. Her heart raced, pounding like a furious drum as they surged forward. But behind them, laughter twisted into something grotesque, echoing through the corridor, mocking their struggle. "Where do you think you're going?" the whispers hissed, sharper now. "There's nowhere to hide. You belong to us now." Her instincts screamed for her to find safety, but there was none to be found. They sprinted deeper into the oppressive darkness, weaving past more doors that loomed like gaping maws, each one tantalizingly cracked open, as if inviting them to step into their doom. Mia stumbled, her breath hitching. "Mommy!" she cried. The fear in Mia's voice nearly drove Laura to a halt, but she forced herself onward, clutching her daughter's hand tightly. "Keep going. I'm right here," she urged, pulling them forward. The corridor twisted, an impossible labyrinth that seemed to distort with every step they took. Darkness pooled around them, shadows darting just out of sight. A piercing shriek erupted from below, a sound unlike anything they had encountered before. Laura skidded to a stop, staring ahead, dread clawing at her insides. "What was that?" Jake whimpered, his grip tightening. "I don't know," Laura admitted, her mind racing. "But we can't stop now." Without warning, the corridor split into three paths, each one darker than the last. Panic gripped her heart like a vice. Which way? Then the shadows began to shift, coalescing into forms that clawed at the edges of her vision. "Choose," they whispered in unison. "Choose wisely, let us go left," Laura commanded, decisive despite her trembling. They began to run again, ripping through the darkness like a lifeline, but the laughter trailed them, chasing like a predator hungry for prey. As they turned the corner, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The walls closed in closer, warped like a funhouse mirror. Jagged edges pressed against her limbs, pulling at her jacket, trying to tear them apart. "Hold on to me," she shouted, tugging both children close as they fought through the encroaching terror. The shadows coughed and sputtered in laughter, morphing into faces they couldn't recognize, casting visions of despair. Memories flooded back that weren't even hers. She saw loathsome figures with sad eyes and twisted smiles. "Mommy!" Jake cried, looking over his shoulder. "Don't look back!" Laura screamed, fear etching deep lines into her face. But the lure of the shadows grew stronger. In the chaos, time seemed to stretch like a rubber band, each agonizing second a reminder of their impending doom. Suddenly, the oppressive corridor opened into a vast room, illuminated by flickering red lights. The walls were alive with movement, paintings writhing and changing, showing horrific scenes of despair and loss. Laura, a voice called softly, twisted like a serpent. You can end this misery. Just let go. The children faltered, shivering as they felt claws of doubt wrap tightly around them. No! She screamed, her voice buoying through the madness. We'll find the way out together. But as she spun around, she realized the room had begun to close in, the walls shifting menacingly, making escape impossible. Desperation clawed at her throat as the shadows around them swelled in anticipation. A choice loomed closer, darker, and more suffocating. Would she sacrifice herself to save her children, or could she shield them against the chaos that wanted to entwine them forever? Please, let us go. She pleaded, eyes darting around wildly, spotting an exit that flickered faintly in the far corner. Just beyond the abyss of shadow, but could she reach it in time? Or would they become just another tale of sorrow swallowed by the dark? Laura's breath quickened again, a flurry of thoughts pounding in her head. They had to run. They had to escape. But could they face the final choice that awaited them? As the shadows lunged, reaching out for their hands, keep moving. Now! She yelled, pushing her kids forward, fear igniting her every step. Would they find salvation, or would this be the end of their story? The echoing laughter seemed to seal their fate. What lay ahead, freedom or eternal entrapment? The darkness surged around them, thick and suffocating, a living entity eager to devour their hopes. Laura's heart pounded like thunder in her chest as she surged forward, Jake and Mia clinging to her sides. The flickering exit light pulsed like a heartbeat, urging them to push through the encroaching shadows. Just a little farther, she shouted, willing her voice to carry strength, but the shadows laughed, a cacophony of mocking jeers echoing in their ears. You can't escape, they whispered. You belong to us. Mia stumbled again, fatigue evident on her small face. Mommy, I don't think I can keep going. Laura urged, digging deep into her reserve of courage. We have to reach the light. We can't let them win. In the back of her mind, doubt clawed at her. Was the light real or another trap, another cruel deception spun by the darkness? But there was no time for hesitation. She grasped Jake's hand tightly and pulled Mia toward the flickering glow. Each step felt like wading through a sea of molasses, shadows trying to snatch them back, reaching with swirling tendrils of despair. Letting go meant losing them to the void. The exit loomed closer, but the laughter crescendoed, a cacophony of anguish wrapping around them like chains. You can't win, Laura. The voice echoed in mocking harmony. You will play with us forever. Then, the ground quaked beneath their feet, a desperate attempt by the shadows to pull them backward. No! Laura screamed, her voice thick with terror and resolve. They pushed through, and just as they neared the door, it slammed shut. The air around them thickened, suffocating, filled with manic laughter that pierced through her resolve. Mommy! Let us go! Jake cried again, panic overshadowing his voice. Her heart ached at the fear in his tone. This is our chance. We have to. Laura threw herself against the door, slamming her shoulder into the heavy wood. Again and again she pushed, sweat trickling down her back, urgency overwhelming her senses. The children's cries mingled with her efforts, filling the air with desperation. She could feel the shadows tightening around them, their presence heavy and cold. Fear clawed at her heart as she lined up another attempt. Then, a moment of sheer clarity struck her, an idea that made every hair on her body stand on end. We're not trapped. This light, she turned to her children. Follow me, think of the sun, think of home. Mommy! Mia whimpered, but Laura grabbed both children, forcing them to focus. Close your eyes. Picture our backyard, the warmth of the sun, the trees blowing in the wind. Picture joy, picture safety. They squeezed their eyes shut, and together they envisioned every beautiful moment spent together, their laughter amidst the daffodils, the smell of freshly mown grass, the warmth of the summer sun on their skin. The shadows froze, their laughter faltering as the light flickered in response. And in that moment of collective hope, the door rumbled. Light burst from between the cracks, real, powerful, and defiant. Now! Laura shouted. Together, they broke away from their fears and charged toward the door, feeling the surge of light. With one last push against the oppressive dark, the door exploded open, light enveloped them, spilling warmth into their souls. As they stumbled through the doorway, the shadows recoiled, screeching in fury as they fell away. Banished by the power of their united strength, they tumbled onto soft grass, the sun shining high above, cascading warmth and hope over them, familiar and safe. Jake and Mia blinked, dazed but safe. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, a release from the tension that had threatened to crush her. Holding her children until they stopped trembling, she stepped back, finally allowing herself to breathe. It felt like waking from a nightmare, the vivid terror fading into the light of day. From the safety of their yard, Laura turned back. The house stood ominously behind them, quiet now, devoid of the shadows that had wrapped them so tightly in despair. But it was simply a house again, devoid of its malevolent spirit. "Let us not go back in," Jake said softly, clinging to Laura's leg. "Never again," she replied, a firm resolve setting in her heart. As they walked away, the laughter of the shadows faded into the past, a chilling reminder of what they had escaped. But here, together in the sun, they finally took back their freedom and their futures. They left Maplewood behind, stepping into a new beginning. Freedom, the most precious gift of all, and now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss another exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm frenzy and keep us thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending because we want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Let us ignite the adventure together.